Hey humans, how's it going? Susan Ruth here. Thanks for listening to another episode of Hey Human Podcast. I recorded this in Los Angeles, California, sitting down with the superb Martin Olson, who may in fact have the best laugh I've ever heard in my life. It is uproarious, to say the least. He is a comedy writer, a television writer and producer, a best-selling author, and a songwriter and composer. He has 5 Emmy nominations to his name, which are for television and songwriting. You may also recognize his voice from SpongeBob SquarePants as a guest on that show, and also as the Lord of Evil on the Cartoon Network's Adventure Time. He's got a lot of accolades, like a ridiculous amount of accolades, and he's had songs performed by Clay Aiken, Chaka Khan, Jack Jones, Weird Al Yankovic, which, holy cow, that's pretty cool. Kenny Loggins, Michael McKean of Spinal Tap, Wayne Brady from Whose Line Is It Anyway, Jack McBrayer from 30 Rock. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. He is a very cool dude, and I will put a ton of links on the link page, which you can find on heyhumanpodcast.com. So it was a great conversation. I loved it. He's hilarious, and that laugh is truly like none other. The usual stuff. You can find the social media bits at Hey Human Podcast. That's Instagram and Facebook. My personal Instagram and Facebook and Twitter are Susan Ruthism, SusanRuthism. Of course, you already know about heyhumanpodcast.com, but did you know that there is an Amazon portal on the front page? And if you click on that and shop Amazon like you normally would, it helps support Hey Human. And I don't know if you've noticed, but it's ad-free, which is my preference. And in order to do that, support from you listeners is a huge bonus. If you're feeling it, please go ahead and shop on Amazon through the portal, and a little tiny bit comes back to Hey Human, which is awesome. You can also help support Hey Human by clicking on the store button on the heyhumanpodcast.com website, and there'll be a little drop down. It says support Hey Human. Yay! So feel free to do that. Any little bit helps. $1, $5, whatever, 50 cents. Make it, 50 cents a month, whatever. Right now I'm doing a PBS thing right here. I don't have a book bag to give you, but, maybe we could work up to that. All I have is great content for your listening pleasure. You can email me, Susan, at heyhumanpodcast.com. And I feel like I'm leaving something out. I don't know what it is, but if you can think of what it is that I've left out, please email me. All right, enough of all this. Let's get into it. Here we go. Martin Olson, thank you for being on Hey Human.
Thanks for having me on Hey Human. And fun meeting you on the phone prior to us meeting in flesh.
Yes. Lots of flesh. No, there's not that much flesh.
Oh my God, I've gained so much weight.
What?
Oh, it's ridiculous.
Well, I didn't know you before.
I'm just giving you the inside scoop.
Okay. 2 scoops.
Oh, 2 scoops is right.
So we knew each other in a very random way. My friend Ruth, who was on this podcast talking about her Church of Satan stuff.
And ironically, the nicest, sweetest person ever just doesn't add up.
She's wonderful. And then it turns out that we have another mutual friend, Bob Bledsoe.
The other sweetest guy in the world. Oh my God.
What a weird small world it is. I was having...
Both of those guys are similar. They're both upbeat, fun people.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Bob is a blast. So is Ruth.
Yeah, they're both like party people.
Maybe we should introduce them. They're both single.
Oh, that's a riot.
You never know. Love is in the air.
Okay, we're going to make a mental note of that.
No, yeah. I listen through always to everything after the fact. You know what I mean? When I go to do the edits. Yeah. In case something insane happens or...
Well, you can edit out my fucking coughing this time around.
What are you allergic to?
Oh, is it okay to swear?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Pollen.
That's a bummer. Any particular? Something that's blooming now?
Yeah, the regular good old pollen from flowers.
So I'm sure you've tried everything, like the honey and all that stuff.
Sure, I do that occasionally. It just takes me by surprise. This morning was bad, but
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
I feel great.
Well, good.
And so fun meeting you, so
Me
what the hell?
too. Me too. It's always bizarre, especially when you already establish, a few phone calls and you get to know somebody a little bit, and then to see them in real life is quite fun.
Cool.
Yeah, it is cool. And especially because I leave tomorrow back to the homeland of Nashville. So let's get into it.
Sure.
You are quite accomplished. Television writer, film writer, book writer, producer, composition writer, so composer. You've run the gamut of the
Well, it's mainly
career.
writer and a songwriter, sure.
Yeah. And particularly composition, or as in,
Writing songs,
but lyric or
both, yeah.
both. Yeah.
When we do songs for Disney, we all do everything. Mm-hmm. But sometimes, for example, one of us, Swampy Marsh, he's extremely witty and can encapsulate words really quickly. Mm-hmm. Very good with dialogue. So he usually, while the other fella, Dan, is a genius musician, so when we work out the melody with, excuse me, with whoever else is working with us, Swampy's scribbling furiously these really incisive things. It's really great. It's so much fun because we only have an hour to do the songs.
Why such little time?
Because Disney doesn't pay us to write the songs unless we have a guest composer come in.
So you're just trying to get them done.
Well, we don't have any time, so we have to schedule it.
Sure.
Because those two guys that I write songs with created the show. They have to run the whole thing. I'm just a writer, so.
I'm just a writer.
Well, I don't
It's a
have
big
to.
deal, isn't it?
I don't have to supervise anything.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Just myself, which
Yeah.
is the worst responsibility.
It is indeed. Let's go backwards, as I like to give people a basis of what shapes them and such. Where are you from originally?
From Boston.
Okay. Oh, yes, we talked about cemeteries.
Yeah, the best cemeteries in the world. Well, no, there must be better
DC
cemeteries.
has some good ones, too.
In Europe, it must be the best cemeteries.
Yeah.
Transylvania.
I remember being young, wandering through the cemeteries in Boston and being transfixed, especially when there was a whole family, and just trying to wonder what may have befallen them. Was it a fire? Was it a plague? Did consumption get them? Typhoid Mary? Whatever,
It's great for children because it gives them a gentle way into the annihilation of death. So they'll eventually come around, oh, that's me too.
Yeah, and you said that your mom took you to visit graves as a kid. Because you have a dark sense of humor, I would...
Well, just one time when we took some crayons, and my wife did it too with our kids, and we would mark down, put the rice paper over the graves and have the imprints, which were so astonishing,
Yeah, they're super cool. Well, have you always had a dark sense of humor? Because you're drawn to these things. For example, a book that you wrote that I adore, which is The Encyclopedia of Hell.
Oh, thanks.
I think it's hysterically funny. And
Thanks.
so well done. It's so as are the illustrations in there, just incredible.
I was lucky I got my favorite illustrators to do it, Tony Millionaire and Mahendra Singh, Celeste Marino, excuse me. So I just was lucky.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great book. It's so funny. Did you have any pushback on that at all, or did people get it?
I got extreme pushback. So the Adam Parfrey, who, God bless him, just passed away recently, was just this genius dude, and he had asked me if I would do social media, which I know nothing about. So I started a Facebook page and all that kind of stuff. And I just got so many. After the first year and a half, there was nothing, and then suddenly there were all these people. It was like a couple 100,000 fans of the book. So that was a surprise. Excuse me. So I forget why we were talking about that.
Because did you get pushback? I'm going to shut this door, actually.
Yeah, so as a result of that, I got hate mail from two groups. One was Satanists, and because it makes fun of evil, and the other is extremely religious people. In other words, I got pushback from fundamentalists.
On either side of the
Right.
The brimstone.
Yeah, they weren't into thinking about making fun of books they say that the creator of the universe wrote. It's fucking ridiculous. And the evil people who like evil, because that to them would be the ultimate freedom, I guess, were mad because I made fun of their stupid rituals and stuff. And I'm sorry, evil people. I don't like any ritual stuff. We have enough religions right now. We need less. You know?
How long did it take you to compile the Encyclopedia of Hell?
10 years.
Holy moly, really?
Yeah.
Or unholy moly, really?
Yeah, spent 10 years doing it.
Wow.
Initially, it just was going to be Devil's Dictionary, updated. And then, because I had to learn joke writing, I was never a good joke writer. It was always my weakness. So I did more conceptual comedy with comedians for HBO specials or for this, whatever, Comedy Central series. So I did it as an exercise to try to learn the craft of joke writing by doing. Because I had gotten all of, Milton Berle's books, every joke book thing I got and read through them, but I just was not naturally witty. I'm not a witty person. So I knew how to do surreal comedy, more free-form stuff. That's what we want to hear.
Was that laughter?
Yeah,
or was it an animal?
Someone's howling, laughing.
Oh, that's so funny.
And but I had to learn just how to do a simple reversal really concisely. Like I mentioned earlier, my friend Swampy Marsh, he's really good with dialogue. Some people have a natural ability. My friend Kevin Rooney, there's a lot of comedians that are extremely good. Heidi Honeycutt, this woman writer who's probably the best, like a Woody Allen type of a succinct joke writer. So some people have it naturally born that way.
What is a reversal for those who don't know?
You do a setup line, and then you extinguish the concept with the second one. You obliterate it. And the more obliterated it is, the funnier it is. Steve Wright's jokes are classic examples.
I love Stephen Wright.
If you look at Steve's jokes, the obliteration happens in many, many different ways.
She's perfectly on cue. I love it.
I think it's an Armenian couple up there. They're either laughing or screaming.
Making love.
Or making love. So you asked about the negative sense of humor thing. I did that for the joke writing, to learn joke writing, because I was lousy at it. And then after 10 years, I became good because I was dedicated to doing it. And the other thing was, if I wanted to do it with Satan as the author, because then all bets were off and I didn't have to worry about...
it can be as absurd as you wish.
It could be without any boundaries, as free as it could be.
Yeah.
So still, I didn't do... I think you mentioned earlier to me about the... what's the documentary?
The Last Laugh.
The Last Laugh, about what is taboo basically for humor, because it's not funny. Usually that's just a function of time, but sometimes it isn't.
Some things are just not ever, you can't touch on it.
Yeah, I mean, examples would be 9/11 or, or the Holocaust.
Although many comedians, Mel Brooks made a whole career on the Holocaust, really. I mean, technically, right?
Well, by one thing removed, because it wasn't about,
it wasn't literally about
comedians do jokes about ovens.
Yeah.
So, because that's the funniest, because it's the most it obliterates the setup.
Right.
And it's the most shocking, and it fucks up your thought patterns. But it's hurtful, it hurts. So that's the only reason why. I had an interesting discussion with a young comedian. I really like his act a lot. Victor Jones, an absurdist act. He's 21, and we talked about the booing that happens now at colleges and so on. And he was pretty adamant and strong and good in his argument about how some of the stuff is hurtful to people that have had
the experience,
who've had bad experiences as a child. But he was realistic too and said that simply, as distasteful as it is, labeling certain comedy CDs or tracks or something, who cares? Why not just label them? And I couldn't really argue against it. If that's the tenor of the times now, why not go...
Like a trigger warning type of deal?
As absurd and as distasteful as that is, because it implies we're all wimps. But now, because of the internet, everything is much more out in the open, whereas before you had to harden yourselves to hide hurt from from being a child.
I think some comedians, though, that I've heard speaking on this matter, talk about how that is the best way to deal with the darkness and the pain, is to shine the light on it, to find the absurdity, and to twist it, like you said, to turn it on its ear, and that in that there's healing.
Of course it is.
But for some people, I guess there is no healing.
No, that is absolutely true, but that's kind of like the unspoken thing you can't say because of the tenor of the times. You can't say that.
Why?
Because then you would break down the argument and not allow even these people to say, I need a trigger warning. I see. I can't, and so it's, I have kids, so you know that sometimes you just sort of eat it and go with what's going to be most helpful to them.
I do understand the idea of the trigger warning. I heard something interesting. I cannot recall who said it. And again, I believe it was a comedian. Something to the effect of, you laugh at the jokes about the blacks or the Jews or the gays, but then don't you dare joke about mother-in-laws or the transgender or and it's interesting. You don't get to pick that as an audience person. This person was arguing, and I wish I could remember who it was. It was probably like Chappelle or something.
No, that's a good point for sure. But these things are all temporary. They're all going to blow over.
Do you think?
Oh, fuck yeah. Just go back.
You mean when the world ends in 12 years?
When the world's over because of Trump. Also, the big message should be love Trump. Love the evil. Don't resist.
Didn't Mark Twain say that?
Probably.
Not Trump, obviously, but he said, doesn't Satan, of all people, you should be praying for Satan. He needs your prayers the most.
Oh my God, that's so obvious, but it's hard because people were beating his kids, and so it's not going to be a viable...
Trump, probably. Serious. I mean, in all honesty, do you know Jim Carrey's artwork at all?
No.
He's been doing, in his coping mechanism of this presidency, he's been painting these wildly sort of absurd, very grotesque, intense pieces of artwork, huge ones, and mocking a lot of the cabinet and this, that, and the other. And there was one that he did that really hit me viscerally, and it was Trump's father, going to hit him. And
no way!
And the hand said, worthless.
Get out of here!
Yeah, and it sent such a wave through me. I thought, wow, that... But see, what's interesting to me, the ironic thing, of course, is Jim Carrey is, I don't know him, so I can't speak for him, but is painting from a place of he's just like, ha! But in reality, he touched something that was probably so truthful and empathic. And say what you will about anybody in history who's been a bit of a dick, and you can probably look at where they came from. It's not an excuse. We all have our stuff that we carry around. It doesn't give us license to be jerks. But it struck me as like, oh, yes. Yeah.
Well, the key thing is I learned from Robert Sheckley. I was so lucky to work with this science fiction writer who was my idol when I was a boy. Excuse me. We became friends as a result of my wife urging me to go down just to meet him when he was locally signing books. And we ended up working on movies and TV shows and video games together. And his main credo was sympathy with all things. He would have the bad guys in a story, with a toothache. You know what I mean? So that was a big, big influence on me for sure. And it also was it's kind of the dividing line for different types of comedy writing. Because I'm not sarcastic at all. You know what I mean?
You wouldn't know it. With your book, at least. There was some good... This is how I described it.
Well, in the book, is it sarcasm?
There's some sarcasm.
There's got to be some, right?
Yeah, there's some sarcasm.
There's 2,000 jokes in there.
Yeah, I described it today at lunch as... I said, if Monty Python was holding a pitchfork, that would kind of be the... It's because it's very Python-esque. It reminds me of their writing.
Yeah, that was a big
influence. It's a huge compliment, by the way, because I adore Monty Python. Who doesn't?
Oh, me too. I was lucky enough through Bob Goldthwait to meet Eric Idle and work with him a little bit on Penn and Teller's show.
Yeah.
I produced a bit that Eric Idle did for them, and it was a thrill. He was such a nice person and so deferential and confident and smiley, and but also he had kind of a couple of push buttons on things, which was where the genius came from, So anyway, I wanted to say one more thing about the dark sense of humor is that I had super good parents. So I didn't have anything to resolve. And just was lucky.
Yeah.
So then everything was kind of a level ground for comedy. I'm not trying to heal anything. I'm just trying to break up thought patterns, and without hurting anybody. The whole point is what you said earlier that Chappelle said. I guess the obvious thing of having your thought patterns busted is somebody's doing you a favor. If you're a religious guy and someone points out the ridiculous tenets of your religion, it's hurtful, but the person's doing you a favor.
It is an interesting mirror to look through, right?
A mirror?
A mirror.
You put it up. Yeah.
Yeah, you put it up against yourself.
Oh, yeah.
And even when you're watching comedy, the things that people say that make you uncomfortable, it's because they're touching something that you've thought maybe, or it's touching on your own idiosyncrasies, it's touching on your own biases, and that's what's making you irritated.
Yeah, I know.
Really?
Yeah, the things that irritate you are the things that you have.
Generally, yes.
I think always.
And pain is its own, ball of wax for sure, but I do find it fascinating. And to your point, in that documentary I watched, The Last Laugh, they talk specifically about the Holocaust and 9/11. That was the whole arc of the
Those are the best examples, for sure.
Yeah, and I highly recommend this documentary. It was very, very, very good.
And obviously rape is the other thing. It's just, it's never funny except in the context of making fun of a joke that's unspeakable.
Yeah, we were talking about that yesterday, that how bizarre is it that if you look at 80s films where there's the date rape underlying is going through so many John Hughes films, who I adore John Hughes films. This was my childhood, was watching these movies, and now with a different lens, the lens of adulthood, looking at these scenes going, holy crap, or Revenge of the Nerds, where, I don't know if you've seen any of these movies.
No, I'm so dumb. I don't know movies very much, so I don't know. But I know his writings. John Hughes was a funny fucking writer.
So funny, genius.
His stories initially that he wrote for the Lampoon I used to buy just for his stories. This is way before he was a director.
Yeah, and a genius. But now looking back, there are things that you couldn't get away with today because
insensitive,
super insensitive and uncomfortable, and
I think it's normal. I don't think there's anything. What's the symbol of our times is the safety space, the safe spaces. That kind of defines the problem. Because,
But never has there been so many safe spaces and so many unsafe spaces all at the same time. They're just jamming up against each other. You can't go to a place of worship. You can't go to a restaurant. You can't. All these things are happening. I see on Twitter constantly,
I didn't think of
racist
that.
people screaming the N-word at customers, or it's just crazy.
That's why if you could, this is where I sound like an idiot, because I am an idiot. But it's true that if you do love Trump, if you have sympathy with this fucking idiot.
Some people listening do love Trump.
No, but if you are sane and you are able to see that he's not a nice guy, not a good person, certainly shouldn't be president. What the fuck? Are you kidding? So you want to have sympathy with the guy. And so if you resist it, then we create more polarization. And it's so satisfying to people who were beaten as kids or had a political stance that is it's the overarching theme of their life. It's about justice, and fucks them up. And a lot of times, sometimes more unjust people have those political views on both sides. But to stop the polarization would help hugely.
I agree.
Just one-on-one, just like me and you talking, and talking with anyone. I mean, you do this on every show. You stop the polarization. That's what the show does.
I mean, I hope so.
Yeah.
And to that end, I definitely try to give that space so that the conversation can happen. And there's that moment, and I see it on Facebook all the time where it's immediately like today, because, the vote is coming for, on the 6th. And right now we are right before that. When this airs, it will be after.
Right.
But people are being so awful.
Turn it off.
Yeah, and to be called...
No, I mean, that's the key.
I've been called a libtard so many times, and it makes me giggle. It means nothing to me.
Turn the fucking thing off.
Well, I agree. But so for me, though, to look at somebody... Because I know people who support Trump, and they have
some of my best friends are conservative people.
Yeah, and they have their reasons. They're not dumb people. They're not mean people.
Not at all.
They're not any of those things. And it's so easy for us to language it as those dumb motherfuckers, as much as they are languaging... You dumb libtard motherfuckers, And
it's so fun talking with you because hardly anybody says things like this. And I have to keep quiet.
But see, I would argue that we shouldn't keep quiet. As long as we stay civil, which is very hard to do, we have to talk.
Yeah,
we have to talk about it.
People are not interested in hearing that it's having sympathy for Trump and stopping the polarization would help. They don't want to hear that because there's no satisfaction.
But it means that they're just... Every argument that is countered with an argument where you're being exactly like the guy you're arguing against is not an argument anymore.
It's the same with the religion.
Of course. All of it.
Politics is the secular religion. So it's the exact same thing that's happening.
We make religion out of a lot of things, whether it's food or, beauty or exercise.
See, I never thought of that.
Just like any addiction can be anything. Religion. Science can be an addiction. I suppose you can err on the side, but when I listen to somebody like Neil deGrasse Tyson, which, by the way, I interviewed his sister.
No way.
Yeah.
Well, how cool is that?
It was really cool. She's a professor of diversity. Really interesting woman.
Excuse me.
But when I hear... And I was raised by a scientist, and I love science. I do, but I also believe in something bigger than myself. And the one thing that bothers me about some scientists, including my father sometimes, and we have these wonderful discussions, and he doesn't do it anymore, but when I was younger... And a few boyfriends I've had have said things like, "You're so smart, how can you believe in God?" And I was like, wow, that's so patronizing. And Neil deGrasse Tyson has a bit of that thing.
Sure, he does. He will refuse to look at anything to do with so-called UFOs.
Right.
So-called paranormal stuff.
But he doesn't know any more than the people who do believe in it know.
No, but there's a arrogance to that.
I agree. That's what I'm saying. Is that
the religious
we have
thing.
to get out of our own way in order to have the conversation, and that's so hard because when I meet you, everything you and I have as an interchange is based on my paradigm, and I'm coming up against yours, and it's very hard to untangle.
This is the greatest podcast. That's the whole point of it, which is the most important thing ever. It is.
Trying to untangle that. And for me to look at you and you to look at me, the royal you, and say, oh, we're the same freaking person. Which is why I'm able to talk to somebody in the Klan. Because there were moments, look, I'm as far from a Klansman as you can get. Yet there were moments where Richard Nichols was funny and engaging. Like, it made sense to me that he is a recruiter.
The part of that gut that I'm suddenly on, I was tearing up. Oh, we're not recording, right?
We are, right?
Oh, we're recording all this.
Yeah, of course.
Was when, at near the end, did I tell you this? It was like very moving to me. He said something so sweet and vulnerable. It's weird to talk about a Klansman in that manner. Well, why don't we stay in touch, and I'll send you the stuff. Can you send me that link? And there was a little reaching out because he is in a place where he doesn't have love, doesn't have the connection of sympathy with all things. And
the loving connection he does have is rooted in a hateful premise.
Yeah.
Or a fearful. I would argue it's not even... He himself doesn't see himself as hateful, which I found fascinating. But he's certainly fearful.
Yeah, right.
It's so interesting.
I'd urge anyone listening to this to listen to that.
Episode 30.
Episode 30 is fucking killer.
Thank you.
And I think it's the essence of this show.
Thank you.
It kind of defines it.
Well, back to...
So I didn't know we're still recording.
Yeah, we...
So anything I said bad, ignore.
No, you said nothing bad. It's fascinating. And again, it's important to have these conversations. And if we don't, who will? And if everyone is so terrified... It's the same thing with the comedians. They're up on stage, and it's really... We're at a time now when I go see stand-up, which I love going to, for a couple different reasons. One, because I need to laugh these days.
Yeah.
And two, because I find comedy fascinating, and I like to look at I like to sort of pull the curtain back and look at Great and Powerful Laws and try and figure out how they developed what they were doing. Looking under the hood or something. And
if you want to look under the hood and see a satire of looking under the hood, it's Freud's jokes and its relation to the unconscious. The big, thick fucking book that he wrote about jokes. Analyzes jokes.
Freud wrote a book about jokes?
It's a huge book.
That's amazing.
It's unbelievable. So it's all in German, so it's even doubly fucked up because his concepts and joke structure ideas are all incomprehensible because you can't translate a joke.
Yeah. Do you know what I find fascinating about, I know I'm going off the rails there, what I was going to say about the comedians is watching them deliver a joke that is on the tender side of, oh shit, what's going to happen next? And
the funnier stuff.
Feeling the audience respond. And then what I love about certain comedians, they're just like, you know what, fuck you if you don't think that's funny. And then they just keep going. They don't succumb to the almost an audience bullying or something.
Yeah, I'm not a performer, so I could never, ever do that because I would succumb in a second.
It's got to be hard. It's got to be tough.
I'm not a leader type, so I can't really... that's why I just never liked performing or being in charge of something.
It's funny, laughter, farty chair. That was the chair. Fart jokes are never not funny. Anyway, so when you said it about the Freud book, and it is funny because the translation of a joke does not work at all, but laughter translates every language, right? It transcends language.
Yeah, it's the closest thing to between two people for sure.
Yeah. I love laughter. And... do people listen to CDs of children laughing? Not the pedophiles. I mean the other people.
One of the funniest guys to listen to about comedy for me is a guy who Michael Pritchard from San Francisco, and he did PBS series on it, mainly talking with kids, guiding them through it. It's so fascinating. I'd really recommend reading his books and seeing his TV shows, Michael Pritchard in San Francisco.
Okay, I'll put links to that.
I think it's the healing power of laughter.
I find it interesting that you say that you studied how to be funny because it seems to me...
Well, no, how to write jokes.
How to write jokes. I guess
you can't learn how to be funny.
Okay, so there is a difference there. All right, then that's...
Writing jokes is a specific, distilled format for humor that I was bad at because my mind is not. I'm not smart. I don't have like that kind of.
You seem smart, but
not for concrete writing. In other words, what I mean smart is when someone's natural at it. Mm-hmm. It wasn't natural to write dialogue or to do. I mean, it took me so long to learn that writing dialogue for scripts, for example, is where you let go and you don't write a fucking thing. You just hear it coming because you've defined the characters in your head. So there's no writing involved. You're just dictation. Mm-hmm. It took me so long to learn that. I mean, I'm old now, so I had many years of trying to just struggling to write dialogue, you know.
And yet here you are, Emmy-nominated writer.
Yeah, well, I learned how to do it for sure.
Yeah.
And all this stuff with the awards is all bullshit, by the way.
I mean, I understand. I come from the music side of things. I know how all that stuff works. Still, it doesn't hurt to have one on the wall or on the shelf.
No, it's kind of an average acknowledgement of time you put in. That's all.
Okay.
It's not that you're the funniest person.
That's depressing.
No, it isn't. The time you put in is the most important thing.
Do you have a favorite book that you've written? Or I know you've written a couple collections of poetry too. So do you have is there something that speaks to you more than something else?
No, I mean, a hell book I put 10 years in, and it was a learning experience to learn how to write jokes. And about half the time I succeeded. You know, it's half of them came out funny.
They're all funny. They're all so fun. It's such a good book.
Well, thanks for saying that. There's a lot of repeat concepts because I was learning how to do it. and I edited out about almost an equal amount. It was twice as big as long. So that's my favorite, the Hell book. But I'm working on the sequel now, which is Encyclopedia of Heaven. And that's the first book, the demons, hell was overcrowded, so they went and invaded Earth, and then they ate everybody, and then they realized the existence of heaven. And so, which is just another dimension, same as hell was a denser dimension than Earth. And so they found the location, and it's an invasion manual of heaven. And it's about the demons, how they took it over.
Do you think you'll get some pushback on that one?
I don't think so, because there's no jokes in it, really. It's more like stories and satires of all of the bureaucracy that's involved in an invasion and, and in heaven.
That's fun.
So,
have you seen The Good Place?
No, that's a TV show, right?
It's very good.
Is that about that?
It's very well done. I don't want to spoil anything.
I don't care, because I'm not even a TV guy.
I don't want to spoil it for them either.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So, but I'll tell you after. Were you raised religious or no?
Well, we went to church for sure, but my parents didn't really care until later. I mean, my father was like there's something called a deacon in a Baptist church. So we were in a Baptist church in Alston, Mass, and then in Littleton, Mass. And it just was a family comfort level thing. My father wasn't religious. He just wanted to have our family have
a tribe.
have a tradition, so that we'd go to something every Sunday. It's fucking cool. I mean, the music was what I learned a lot of songwriting from hymns. Oh my God, the songs were so good. It's just the words sucked. But then again,
Christian music is pretty fun. I enjoy writing that, actually.
I've never, I guess maybe I haven't, more like spiritual type themes and stuff like that, but never any religious thing. But
that's what I mean, sorry, more spiritual. Yeah, I like playing around with the idea of God could be a lover.
Oh, that's great. I look forward to listening to all this stuff. I bought your album.
Thank you, that's so awesome.
I think I might have bought, do you have 2 or 3 albums?
I have 4.
Yeah, I think I bought a couple. I can't remember, but I look forward to listening to them.
Oh, thank you.
Especially if you're doing stuff like that. So I was going to say about the religious thing. So my mother had open heart surgery. She was born with chorea. She was born with heart disease. So gradually over her life, she died at age 60. It kept eating away at her heart. So she was like the poster child for heart surgery, heart valves. The pig valve, the mechanical valve. She was the first one to do a lot of those things. And they flew in doctors from all over the place. Wow. Boston, Mass General. We were so lucky to be near Boston.
Still 60 is so young.
It sucked really bad. My parents were the greatest. But
see, you say that you didn't have a childhood that had some issue, but I would say you may not have been a little kid, but losing your mother so young had to impact you.
Well, loss is different than hurting. When someone hurts you, if your parents hurt you, it's like the biggest cognitive dissonance ever.
Yeah.
So there was none of that. It was, my brother was growing up he's the funny one in the family. Super hilarious guy. He always was funny.
Older or younger?
A year younger. And also a genius intellect. He never demonstrates. He's just a weird guy because he's, it came more naturally to him, and he never really had an interest, I think, in it. He was more interested in being social, and I was just a nerd, in my room. But thank goodness for him, because he freed me up by watching him of how to be funny, He was naturally funny. He's an actor and a super good photographer now, late in our lives.
That's cool.
But about the religious thing, my father we used to paint the town church in Littleton. It was just like there were 90 people in my graduating class. It was all cow pastures and everything. So people went to churches and stuff like that. It wasn't any heavy duty thing. So there's 2 things I just wanted to mention to you about that. I was driving, because I used to paint the church with my dad. My dad was a house painter. So my brother and I would go along on his jobs a lot of the times. And so driving down there one time, Simon and Garfunkel's Mrs. Robinson song came on. And there's some line about making fun of people who believe in Jesus or something like that. It's just, just normal, youthful satire. And my father, who's not really, he's not a rule type person at all. He never raised us like that. He said, I wish they didn't do that. I said, what are you talking about? Because I had no idea what he meant. He said, they're making fun of people who believe that stuff. It just hurts them. And why bother to do that? They're not going to change. He's talking about old people. And that was the first time that concept hit me. This is before Robert Sheckley and Sympathy with All Things. So my father was saying that.
He had a lot of empathy. He understood.
But for me, it was like, what the fuck are you talking about in my mind? Because freedom of expression is what you want.
Sure.
So that's the thing. Those are the two ends now, that both things are legit. One is empathy and the other is freedom.
But don't I have the freedom not to listen to the things that are going to bother me? And then I guess that's supposedly the idea of the idea of the trigger warnings. It gives you the opportunity to say, oh no, I don't want to ingest this. When
we had the conversation, I think I told you recently, with the comedian Victor Jones, the 21-year-old, who's a surrealist, and he was very much, not caustic at all and very understanding of both sides, but he said no. He says, why not put a trigger warning? Things are screwed up right now. What do you lose? And my answer was, I lose nothing. It just, because I'm old, it just sucks and I don't like it.
Yeah, it's change.
But there's no absolute...
You turn on TV, regular network TV, your ABCs, your NBCs, your CBSs, and you've got violence against humanity 1,000-fold.
Yeah.
And we ingest that, the video games that we buy our children. I don't have children, but, whatever. All of that is pretty intense.
Yeah, that's another discussion, the way you program your mind. Mm-hmm. And certainly if you are doing killing, most of the single shooter things are all killing games. And they're so fun. So some of the more enlightened guys tried to make it that you're killing ghouls or spirits or anything like that. But basically it's just really rough when it's war ones.
Yeah.
Because if I was an arms merchant, that I would be investing in military video games.
Well, who knows? Maybe the military does invest in some of these games. It would behoove them. Talk about great recruitment films.
Well, I think what you're saying seems logical. That's why I'm skeptical of it, because the world is so fucking chaotic. So,
do you think it's more chaotic than it ever has been, or do you think we're just more aware of it?
No, I mean, even with conspiracies, the conspiracies, of course, exist. You should talk to Doug about it, because he says they don't. Of course they exist, but it's more like chance things. You have to kind of plan some stuff, but when all these elements come together, where someone can do a conspiracy to fool someone and get money and power, a lot of times it's not some overarching evil. It's just like, oh, hey, wait a minute, if we do this, and it's like that, I remember Robert Sheckley told me that when he was a young science fiction writer, the CIA brought him and some other science fiction writers in for a secret fucking meeting, asking them ideas for how America could get attacked. And one of them, they said, was get in a plane and just smash them into buildings. This is like in 1950. So a lot of the stuff was by chance. So the reason why I'm thinking about that kind of stuff is that everything's the thing that heartens me is that chaos rules. So you can always, it's just like with magicians. I'm a big fan of magicians. I work with Penn and Teller, and since I was a kid, he gave little magic shows like a fucking idiot.
I love magic.
Well, a lot of people don't.
People don't like it because they don't like to be fooled, or they don't like that someone's trying to trick them. But I think it's fun. I'm not offended by it.
I think it's different with my wife, for example. She says, I know it's a trick, so there's no thrill for me.
Oh, I enjoy, my inner child comes out, and I love it.
I love it too, but it's just that everybody's different. So
yeah,
I'm saying, that's a really interesting point of view. So it is a trick, of course. There's no magic.
Mm-hmm. Unless there is.
Unless there is. Well, this whole thing is magic, for sure. That's the only magic, is everything.
Exactly. If we're creating as we go, we certainly are magicians.
So, I forget what I was talking about, stupid magic.
It is fun to think that there are people who deny the magic of the universe and yet give a deity omnipotent power and then take it away.
God. Can you say that again, please? Say that again.
Well, they deny magic and then they give a deity omnipotent power, but then they deny the omnipotent power by saying there's other forces that are at work that are somehow doing dastardly deeds that the omnipotent power is incapable of thwarting somehow. It doesn't make any sense. It's a weird argument to me.
No, I mean, it's like just...
I believe in something bigger than myself, but I don't know what it is, and I don't need to know what it is, because it doesn't... I suppose part of it is because I feel like I'm doing pretty good, as far as being a good person.
That's the key, right?
Yeah, and so I don't...
If you have zero intent to hurt anybody, then you know you're a good person.
Yeah, and I think that I'm in touch with whatever that is, and I don't need to convince you to believe what I believe.
Right.
Because to me, this is me personally, what I believe is that when somebody is deafening in their argument of why you should believe what they believe, it's because somewhere in them, they're not quite sure if they believe it. Because people don't get that crazy about something unless they're not quite sure of their argument or they're actually doing the thing they're telling you not to do. As we see all the time in the newspaper when people are screaming, Jesus hates gays, and then they're caught in the bathroom getting a blowy from their cute neighbor boy or whatever, I don't know.
Well, another way to distill
I'm
that...
going to get so many letters on that.
Well, no, I don't think so, because that's, look at, hatred is not, nobody likes hatred, even people that have hatred, they wish they didn't. It's unless they're insane.
Or they don't think it's hateful. The Westboro Baptist people, for example, they think that they're really doing good.
Yeah, but they know that it's through using hate as a tool. So they're not dumb. So they.
No.
But here's what they are: is that to me the deal breaker is when you get down to religions, the God actually says, "I want you to worship me." So right away, the premise is idiotic, because the God's a fucking douchebag, an idiot,
ego,
a moron,
a lot of ego,
an idiot. Only a moron will worship me. Who would say that?
A human. That's our anthropomorphizing our deity. An omnipotent being, I feel, would have better things to do than worry about whether humans were really that into him.
I know, but the truth of the matter is, all a deity is the universe condensed down into its sentient being. That's all a deity is.
I feel
so that's what we are.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, and any person that creates in his mind, naturally so, a group mind or a higher group spirit, and personifies it. If that personification says "worship me," right away it's the premise sucks. It's completely... So that's the level of... That's where stupidity comes in. Because someone can't say, oh, wait a minute. Stop, hold...
But you have your leaders and you have your followers. That's true with anything, right? That's true in business. It's true in creative fields. It's true everywhere you go. It's true in dog packs. There are leaders and followers. And I think that, unfortunately... if I look to what I believe... And I may be wrong, but it's okay. I don't care if I'm wrong because it's mine and I don't give a shit. But it's, I feel the universe coursing through me. I look at everything as divine, I look at you as divine and me as divine.
That's sanity is what that's called.
But I think there are people who need to feel like there is some great hand so manipulative in their life that they can let go and be like, oh, thank God. I don't have to think about it too much. They're not necessarily dumb people. They're just... not the leader type. And then there are the people that are like, oh, ho, ho, you can talk to God, but only through me, right? And that, to me, those are the a little more creepy for me. No, that's not to say there are plenty of religious people that are lovely and are trying to do good in the world, yada, 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 fine. But...
Susan, here's the next step on that one, is that my super genius friends... a number of them, the person who's the guru who's legitimate guru has zero interest in followers. Right. It's all on the follower who attributes those things and reads signs into what the person says and what happens during their conversation and stuff like that. So, and also the unspoken is the followers also have no intention of hurting and want to be truthful and so on, but there's an unspoken feeling of wanting to be part of something bigger than yourself. So it's the same thing you said, except that a lot of people who are put upon to be a guru don't want followers, but they just sort of humor people and just go with it, hoping they don't fuck up. And they always do, by the way.
Well, because their ego says, hey,
it sucks.
There's like 12 virgins over there. Let's go, or whatever.
An example would be Dalai Lama. You know what I mean?
Osho, Gandhi. Even
Osho is like what's his real name? That's not.
I forget his name. His actual name.
He was just an evil fucking dude.
Yeah, I watched that documentary. Holy moly!
I'm glad I heard there was one about him because he was like poisoning people and he was like
his 50 people were Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but he was like he had
he knew
fleets
about it.
of
no, totally bad person.
Oh,
absolutely.
And so I know really nice people that love him, and they don't even look up.
I've quoted him before, and until I realized who he was actually, somebody offhandedly said, "Oh, Osho, that's that guy that had that weird sex camp." I'm like, what? And then I started digging in. I was like, holy shit.
Similar to Ron Hubbard or people like that. People don't even look up their lives. People don't have any curiosity to look up what the fuck. So that's part of the thing where.
That's the other question too. Can genius people who are genius at a craft and who you enjoy what they do, or they say something you're like, yes, can they still be totally horrible human beings? Bill Cosby, great example. Funny as fuck, right? How many of his stand-ups were you like, oh my God, that's genius. Horrible human being.
Insane.
And it's like it's weird to think about that's that thing with like the KKK guy, those moments of humanity. Those moments of, oh, you're like a normal person. Not exactly.
All right, here's a story that'll piss people off, maybe you too.
Sweet. Bring it.
So I went in to audition for jobs. I'm a writer, so there's the zillion writers coming in. I lucked out, and I got picked by Bill Cosby. I pitched, he was looking for he heard that I was doing I wanted to do an animated show for kids about autism. So he heard the examples I'd pitched, and everybody said, fuck that. Are you kidding me? It just was undoable, really, back then. This is a couple of years ago. So I went in and pitched the thing, and he was a weird guy, but he was very funny, and it just was a weird experience. And basically I started swearing like crazy, because I was in the other room when I was told to wait. And he's on the phone with some sports people. I don't know anything about sports. He's on with some football people or something, and he's telling them how to present themselves as Afro-Americans and to show respect. And I was listening to it, and I said, fuck this. So, and mainly it was about not swearing. So I went in swearing because I'm a fucking idiot, and I told you I work with Dan and Swampy at Disney. My closest friends working with people, or with Sean Tedjarachi, my book designer guy, and all the people I work with are anti-authority people. That's where I'm most comfortable. So, because it's just like a check. It's like all the insanity is already gone on all that level. You already know that everybody sympathy with all things. You're not gonna believe anybody. This kind of thing. So I go in there to the room where I have to meet Cosby with his producer, who's the most wonderful guy in the world, by the way, and was totally victimized by the whole thing. And I start swearing up a storm, and then Cosby starts swearing back with me. Completely, I just went for it. And luckily my ideas were good, and I didn't care, even though I needed the money. But it just felt weird when I heard that conversation. So then luckily he picked me out of all. So this is the story. So, the sympathy with all things kind of a vibe. and I knew nothing about him being insane and an insane rapist.
Nobody did they? I know there were rumors back then.
I think Bill Hicks had talked about it. I think people talked about it.
And
because he was all these lawsuits. Well, he came out recently, but Hicks came out way back, and I think Barry Crimmins did too early on. So that's because of all the lawsuits. Because the essence of evil now is you just buy out people. So I wrote the outlines and I had this show figured out. I was so proud of it, and his producer was wonderful. Oh my God, it was so just fantastic. And it was with who was it with? Oh, it was with Netflix. So we sold the show in the room, and with Jim Henson Company. So then I passed her the outline. So then I get a call about 7 o'clock at night, and it's his producer, this genius, wonderful dude. Dr. C wants to talk to you. And I never called him Dr. C because, what doctor? What the fuck? So I just called him Bill. So, so he gets on the phone, and he already knew that time that we met. It was a 2-hour meeting when I got picked. The whole time we're just howling laughing. I mean, really, howling fucking laughing the whole entire time. So stuff like that's going to get people mad because they don't understand about sympathy with all things with someone who's a demented rapist. There's a whole other thing happening too.
Right, I understand that completely. So I don't know that people will get mad at that. I mean, the truth of the matter is he's fucking funny. You can't deny that Bill Cosby is a funny human being. You can also not deny that he's a monster. Both those beings live within him. And I find it fascinating that he started swearing with you, because to me that says sociopath. Because sociopaths mirror. That's one of the telltale signs.
Well, certainly he didn't have a conscience doing all that shit. The word sociopath is kind of a weird word because it gets thrown at people, so, diagnosed people. It's just, oh my God, it's a slippery slope. So the guy was definitely insane. That's a safe way to say it. And he had no conscience for sure. So, hey, Bill, how you doing? I'm on the phone call. This is the first call. He says, there's a long pause. He knew he could make me laugh. So he said, YouTube. And there's a pause. I said, YouTube? So, so you want me to watch something on YouTube? And he said, shoot, what's that show with Little Joe and Haas? Bonanza. He says, Bonanza. I said, there's an episode of the TV show Bonanza you want me to watch? And then there's a pause. And he's just doing this to fuck with me in a funny way. So then he says, the title of the episode, which I forget the name of it, blah, 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 blah. I said, okay, there's an episode called blah, 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 blah. This was just a hilarious way that he was dealing with me. So I said, there's an episode, blah, 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 and it's on YouTube, and I should watch that, why? And then he says, near the end of the episode, there's a conversation between Little Joe and Haas, where they had bought a bunch of rabbits with the father's money they were supposed to use for fencing to fix the fences, and they got taken by a con man because the con man told them they would multiply them, they could sell them, and they'd be rich. So the tone of that conversation is the same tone I hear papers full of psh, psh, psh. On page 6 of the outline, the third paragraph. That's what's missing here. And I looked at this, and that motherfucker was totally right on. It was like it fixed everything. So that just was an example of the reason why this monstrous, insane person had such a flip side.
Mm-hmm. We are a mosaic, are we not?
Yeah. So at any rate, I didn't mean to go along on that story, but
it's fascinating.
It was super fascinating to me for sure. So, and I didn't deal with him at all except in terms of comedy. We just laughed. Mm-hmm. So I didn't see the monster. Mm-hmm. So there was a little guilt and so on about it. But then right when we closed the deal with Netflix, that night, We signed the papers, everything, and the deal was done. And I was going to be doing super good because I was like the executive producer and the head writer for the thing. And I mapped out the whole series. And I come home, and my wife is in the kitchen where we have a sort of a little ante-room with a big TV. And she's on the sofa there crying, watching TV. And I said, what's going on? She says, look. And she just flipped through the channels. It was Bill Cosby, the rape thing, the whole thing, every fucking channel. Oh my God. The same night. So she and I looked at each other and we just knew it was over instantly. The same day that the deal closes, like a month after you sell it.
Yeah.
So it's funny little dramas happen that later turn into be bigger stories. You know.
Yeah, the whole movement around those types of people, it's really been fascinating to watch as an outsider, but then as an insider because I'm in the music industry.
Yeah.
And seeing it firsthand on so many levels.
Oh yeah.
People in power, absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a shame. Why can't more nice people be in power?
Yeah, but that's bad if a nice person in power is the ultimate test, right?
I suppose so.
I was telling you about the gurus, start out good.
Yeah.
I mean, the toughest person now to have, like the Dalai Lama. The guy was chosen by a farce. It was a farcical thing, and so...
Don't they have dreams or something, and then they have to answer questions? I'm not really sure how the Dalai Lama gets chosen, but I thought they had to answer reincarnation type questions. They have
let me summarize it in an artificial way. Let's say there's three objects: a bowl, a wand, and a blah blah, glass of water. I don't know. And they have to then they go to a young child, 2 years old, and then they do a series of questions or tests or whatever it is. And by the way, these three guys or whatever it is who are looking for the reincarnation of the previous dude are under a lot of fucking pressure.
Oh yeah, I imagine.
It's all political. So they have to find someone even if it doesn't fit. This is what happened to Krishnamurti, if you're familiar with his story. The Theosophists had an intuition about a new avatar coming in. So they found this kid in France or whatever it was and just he was they tested him, and that's how it happened. So he was stuck.
Nobody tested me, dang it.
You're lucky. I think the hardest thing ever would be the Dalai Lama, because then anybody part of you would believe it. The reason why I think he's an okay dude is because part of him doesn't believe it. But he can't say that.
Yeah.
So, but still, this worship thing is the lowest of the low. His holiness, what the fuck?
It's that thing, again, of wanting to touch something beyond oneself.
Yeah, it's true. So, and I'm sorry I'm so...
You are who you are.
No, but I don't want to be hurtful, but I am, because people, I know my friends don't like to hear that. And they're like far from idiots. They're like the most genius people ever, but they just like that stuff, and I don't like it for whatever reason.
Yeah. Maybe in a past life you were a guru.
Oh boy.
You never know.
I have pity on my followers.
How did you come into animation stuff? Because Phineas and Ferb, of course, is a biggie.
Mary Harrington, one of the execs at Nickelodeon, and one of the more far-reaching ones. She was very eccentric and smart, and she hired different types of people, and I just was lucky that she read my stuff and liked it.
Yeah, because that show is pretty out there. It's interesting and sort of non sequitur.
Which show?
Phineas and Ferb.
Oh, that was way later. Because basically I first started writing for comedians in Boston with all the comedy people.
And you sent stuff to Dangerfield?
Oh yeah, I used to send him jokes.
And he was like, nope.
It's 10 jokes a page, so him and, what's her name? The other funny joke person. I'm sorry, I forget her name. Joan Rivers.
Joan Rivers, sure.
So, 10 jokes a page, $50 a joke. And so always Rodney would write, sorry, Marty. So later when I met him, he was a guest on Penn and Teller, the show that I was writing for them in Vegas. And so I reminded, he showed up with an eye patch on. He had a all fucked up eye, and his wife was so sweet and great, and he was really nice to me. And I said, "Hey, do you remember me? I'm Martin Olson." Oh, he says, "Oh, sorry, Marty." He remembered right away.
That's so funny.
And so it was really fun working with him, working out the bit with him.
Yeah,
it was great.
How do you write for comedy for magicians? What is there?
Well, I'm a fan of magic since I was a little kid. I like that funny pretension of being all powerful. It's funny. It's a satire of being a human being. So it's like really funny to me. Doing a trick is just funny because nobody gets hurt. That's the main thing. And you still can bust up thought patterns without words. So comedy is like magic because comedy just does it with words. Magic does it with, physical actions. Break up thought patterns. That's impossible. How did that happen? With a joke, it's like, what? The first part of the joke is now obliterated? I have to rethink, That's why when I was a kid, my favorite still is, I never was drawn to political satire or things about things that are happening or anybody with a message. I never liked for some reason. I liked more abstract. I like Steve Martin and Andy Kaufman and
love Andy Kaufman.
All those guys that had no message, because the message was unspoken that you're going to break up their thought patterns.
Andy Kaufman was his own beastie. I feel like he was just out on some other part of the tree.
Yeah, and there were people there was Olson and Johnson before him.
I don't know who that is.
Look up Hell's a Poppin'. They did Broadway shows, and they were a comedy team. Olson and Johnson were precursors to surreal comedy. And with Dada, there was surreal, certainly was happening in Paris. And it was all mixed up with stuff like a photo of somebody spitting on a priest, though. So there would be, with Dada, there was a mix of, the Ubu Roy type of a thing where it just was absurdist stuff, mixed with just unobjectionable, unspeakable things that you do that wouldn't be hurting anybody. It just would be offensive. So yeah, for what it's worth, and it certainly doesn't mean anything's better than anything else, I never liked comedy with a message. For some reason, I'm not sure why.
Is that why you tend toward the abstract and the surreal? Yeah. Is there not still message in there? I feel like Andy Kaufman, who was so wacky, had a lot of messages that he was delivering. He just did them in a really weird way. What
would be the message? I mean, you're probably right, because,
I think he liked to push the button. I think he was the kid in the back seat going...
Yeah, but breaking up thought patterns isn't a message. Breaking up, what's the word for breaking up anticipation for something and taking the audience's mind in the opposite direction violently.
But I feel like that is a message. I think we get so complacent. I think the message was anti-complacency, perhaps.
Yeah.
He was wacky.
It was mainly juxtaposition. That's the first phrase for joke telling. You're going to juxtapose the opposite against it. If you're doing a joke about formal sex, about casual sex, then you do a formal sex example. So you just do whatever the opposite would be, and then depending on how funny you are personally, how that amplifies it to be even funnier.
Yeah, I think about like Norman Lear comedy, and the king of irony, and just the lessons that were in there subtly and sometimes not so subtly. And like I look at Andy Kaufman and I think, the man died of lung cancer and he didn't smoke. That's this weird, almost even that in his death, he's still giving that sort of hoo-hoo. You know what I mean? It's so bizarre.
I get a funny Norman Lear story. Who was
I adore him.
The greatest of the greats, by the way.
Adore.
And it's the opposite of what I'm saying. He totally was trying to put out good vibes and to try to challenge people. That everything I said earlier about not liking things with a message is false, because that was as good as it gets. And so I was with Steve Sweeney, one of the best comedians in Boston, who did characters and was a playwright and a good friend. And we went to see Norman Lear at Emerson, and we got there early. We took seats in the sort of near the front, but kind of in three or four seats back. And it filled up packed. And we were like, 30, 20, 28 or something like that. And it was all 18 and 21-year-olds packing the place. And Norman Lear got up there, and he gave his talk, and he was really, really good. And then there were questions, and so, and he was really funny. And so one of the people up front had a tape recorder, was kind of like a rude person. It was a woman who was kind of like rude, I guess. Just didn't have self-perception, self-awareness. So she just was a little bit too pushy and stuff. So she said, listen, I hope you don't mind. She was nice, though, but she just was, she was young. So she said, with the Jeffersons, and that was the show he did with the black people, and it was to show an affluent black scene, sympathy with all things. And so why would you want to depict black people like that? They do like the jokes, and first of all, she's forgetting it's a fucking sitcom, so it's going to suck no matter what. So why would you want to do that? I mean, here's an example of a joke, and why would you want to depict black people like that? And she has her tape recorder thing out, her mic out. And he looked at her and he said, well, I don't really like black people. And Steve and I fucking howled. I mean, screamed laughing. And everybody else was silent. Then people started laughing, and then there was uproarious laughter. But he got eye contact with us first, because he said, okay, there's one little island there that I can be real with. I mean, just because we were older, that's the only reason. Not smarter than them. We were fucking older and had been doing comedy. So that was just an example of a moment with Norman Lear where he, you know what I mean? You have to sometimes just, and he was a bold person, so he would stand up and say the right thing, even and try to teach by doing. And in that case, it was teaching irony.
All in the Family is genius, that show. Genius. Oh, so good.
Oh my God, it was like heartbreaking.
Yes. And he's still kicking. Go Norman Lear. Gonna live to be 1,000. God bless.
Well, that's my Norman Lear story. That defines who he is, you know?
Mm-hmm. So, aside from the Heaven Project, what else you got in the pipes?
I'm doing a pilot for Henson now. I just finished the first draft. It's a fantasy kid show. Mm-hmm. And I'm working with these genius guys. I'm so happy. So they sent all the notes today, and it was like brilliant. I'm saying, oh my God. I said, Kay, I don't have to do much work. There's only a few things that are off, that I thought were off. And aside from that, I'm working with my daughter I'm writing film treatments for Mattel. Mattel's developing kind of a Marvel Comics type of a setup based on their products, whereas Marvel used their characters from the last 100 years, 50 years, and then developed film scripts and so on, and it was a slow burn. Mattel's now doing that now, and God bless them, and they're really creative, fun people over there.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Do you still love what you do?
Yeah, I'm the luckiest guy ever. I have the best job.
Yeah, you have a great job.
I get to do comedy writing, and I get to do songwriting and get
paid. Talk about your songwriting a little bit. What is that? Does specifically to these...
How old were you when you started?
I wrote, I think I was 24-ish, I guess.
Guitar first?
No,
Piano.
I didn't touch instrument until much. I taught myself piano and guitar a few years ago.
No way. You're so good. Holy shit.
I
What the
kind of
fuck?
dabbled here and there. But
You're really good at, I mean, I saw the thing with you piano was, I said,
I don't know how good I am, but I don't know
Well, you faked it really well.
Yeah, I certainly can accompany myself. My melody and my lyric is really my strong suit. Lyric especially. I'm a words girl.
Your lyrics are good.
Thank you. Nobody is coming to see me be a virtuoso on an instrument. They're coming to hear what I have to say.
You faked it really good because I didn't know that. I thought you were like a long-time player.
It's a few years.
Huh.
Yeah.
So for me, it was it was 12.
Oh, wow.
So I've been doing it since I was a little kid.
Yeah.
So, and that was piano and guitar, same thing as you. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a word person. I'm horrible at lyrics.
I love words.
I'm so bad at it. I think as though if I hear a song, my brain is not right. So if I hear a song, I can't hear the lyrics while I hear the song because I'm more music oriented.
Sure, I understand.
So I have to listen to it again to hear what the lyrics are. Sometimes I hear the lyrics if it's like an anthem type chorus repeated, and then I sort of back engineer instantly just, this must be about this, but just the music is all I hear. So then I have to go back and hear the words afterwards. So I'm not geared toward it. My brain is kind of split or something.
Yeah.
I met a couple other people that have the same type of brain processing, so I didn't feel like a total freak, you know?
I think the guitarists I know always hear the guitar line. The bassists I know always hear the bass line. It's funny, a friend of mine played me some songs that he had written, and he said, hey, we listened to the demos back. I said, sure. We sat in his car, and we were listening. And he said, yeah, my buddy produced it, blah, 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 blah. And I looked at him, I said, is your producer a drummer by any chance? Because the drums were just like banging, and you could hardly hear what he was singing. I was like, this kid. He said, how'd you know that? I said, just the lucky guess.
That's a riot. Do you want a mint?
Sure. So yeah, because I hear words. That's the first thing I hear are the words, and I go back
most
and
people
hear
do.
Yeah.
I don't hear them at all.
I love poetry. But
I don't. If the music's playing, I can't hear the words.
But you have a book of poetry or two. Hitler's Dog, The Imaginary History of Reality, which are great titles.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, but that's different from the mechanical process of brain structure or neuron paths. So whatever it is, I don't hear words first. The music is instantly what I'm hearing.
For anyone listening that may be deciding to venture into the wonderful world of all the things you do, any good sage wisdom, guru?
Brother. Just what Bob Sheckley had helped me with about sympathy with all things. That way you find you don't get into a guru state or become like a old sage.
But how do you break into what you do?
You mean get jobs?
Sure. Besides showing up.
Sure, I know how to do that. You'd have let's say, for example, you're writing for a package you want to write for like a late night talk show. You'd get a package together, which would have monologue jokes, desk pieces, overall odd concepts that you think that could involve the band or anything unusual that would make your package of ideas stand out. But mainly it has to be really good jokes. So you have to practice joke writing. And then you have to know somebody to get it in there. You have to get an agent. It's just very complicated and difficult. But if you really want to do it, sometimes you'll luck out. It's mainly luck, I guess.
Yeah. I say this on the podcast all the time, much to the annoyance probably of everyone who listens, but my uncle always said, opportunity knocks, it doesn't nag.
Oh, that's great. I never heard that.
I think he coined it. I think he made it up, yeah.
Yeah, you have to be ready for it, for sure.
Yeah.
So if you're doing it since you're 12, then I just had a leg up on everybody because I would be doing it whether I get paid or not.
Yeah.
I know that's true of just about everybody that I know. They'd be writing or doing music even if they weren't paid for it.
Because you can't not do it.
Can't not do it.
Yeah.
A funny crystallization of that idea is Samuel Beckett's novels, where he's just saying, look, I have to keep talking. I can't stop. I have to keep going on with this. You know what I mean? I'm not in control of this, so just go with me. Just go with it. I have to keep going on, you know?
Thank you.
We done?
Martin, yeah, I'm going to put links to your books and things on my on heyhumanpodcast.com. Do you have a website, though, that they can check out? Martin Olson?
It's martin.olson.
Martin.olson.com.
Yeah, and it just... Windows magically closing. Perfect timing for the window to close.
Yeah, that's right.
And
Martin
so also
Olson.
I'd urge everyone to look up your music and artwork. So just check that shit out. It's really
Thank you.
fucking
I appreciate
good.
that. Thank you. Thank you.
Because
Martin, thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time to see me here in Los Angeles. And
yeah, I'm honored that you asked me to be on. Thank you. And thank you to Ruth, too. That was sweet of her to suggest me.
Yeah, she's awesome. Bye, everybody. Thank you for listening.
Bye, everybody.
Yay.